What's going on, guys? This is Martyrs Brigade 99 coming to you once again with another session of Dark Souls PvP. Alright guys, we're back at it for part 2 of the series that I like to title Sparring Sessions. And like I said before, it was really nothing fancy about it, not a battle of the builds, not a battle of the uploaders, or nothing with any particular theme in mind. It was just one of those sessions where basically I'm trying to get more proficient on my tactics. Like we kind of touched on in part 1 of the video series, I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys, especially if you're familiar with the channel, that I kind of been on this thing within the last few weeks about playing without a shield. Secondly, I've also kind of been on this kick about improving my toggling. So I've basically let go of the 53 poise break, at least during setup matches, because I don't know, during forest invasions I really need to stick with it. Well, at least for now. Then maybe a little later on I might improve, but at least for now, insofar as I am forest hunting, I'm sticking with the 53 poise break. But whenever I'm going to do duels, may it be battle of the uploaders, may it be battle of the builds, or may it be a sparring session like in part 2 of this particular, or actually not just part 2, in parts 1 and 2 of this particular session, I'm going to stick with the less than 53 poise benchmark. Alright, went for a good lock BS right there. We're good to go. And the reason why I think this is good, because if you guys have noticed, I'm getting some good toggles. The reason why I think it's good, and it just could be personal preference. Number one, it kind of helps to improve your reaction times, right? Because for a lot of you guys that like to play with less than 53 poise, either you're going to get stun locked, or you're basically going to need some quick reactions on your toggling. And you guys will notice, in some of these occasions, I'm pretty good with the first hit toggles, but in some of the others, especially in some of these instances when I get taken for a surprise, I'm not as lucky. So it's just kind of one of those things that, the more you do it, the better you'll get eventually. But, while playing, with low poise within the last, I would say, week. Now, I've definitely been going without a shield over the past couple weeks, but this whole thing about the low poise and practicing the toggling, I've been at that for probably about a week. But see, this is what you run into. If you guys notice, he knows I'm rocking low poise, and he's basically just R1 spamming, which is, nothing wrong with R1 spamming, like I've kind of touched on in the past. If you guys notice, he hit me with the parry. Like I've touched on in the past, the term, R1 spamming has a negative connotation, but there's nothing wrong with it. Because, look, it helped right there, especially when you have low poise like I do. Right, so there's nothing wrong with the term R1 spamming. It just basically has a negative connotation. But just keep in mind, especially for you new players, you really have to pick and choose when you do it. R1 spamming should be somewhat of a strategic move, because there's a lot of guys who can parry and who will parry you on the second hit, especially players like me. Right now, with me only having 14 poise, I can't really do it right now. Number one, because I'm trying to concentrate without a shield, and number two, I don't have enough poise to be able to sustain one hit. But if I had one of my 53 poise builds, he would not be getting away with that stuff. Bottom line, if you guys notice, got a good toggle parry right there. And you really need some fast reactions if you're going to try to experiment and improve on your toggling. And like I said, it's not impossible. You really need fast reactions, really. Now, it's not one of those hotshot moves. Anyone can do it. I'm just saying it definitely requires practice. Alright, so in part 2 of the sparring session, it's just basically myself versus Mocking Hawk and Khalad. Right, so shout out to both of those guys. Khalad is basically or Zolohan, whatever name you guys know him most by. But basically, Khalad is one of those Twitch bros, and Oxy, he's kind of on Twitch, but I just know him for doing a lot of PvP, period. Alright, so shout out to both of those guys. And actually, whenever I want to get some good matches in, I mean, Mocking Hawk is definitely one that I like to get in contact with because he's pretty good at the PvP. And at the same time, he doesn't go try-hard mode. And, you know, whenever I'm trying to learn something, I really don't want to fight someone who has something to prove, right? Because I'm trying to improve. I'm not trying to get one or two shotted. So whenever, you know, I ever want to practice on my tactics, there are definitely two guys in particular that I know I can count on. One being Mocking Hawk, and another one in particular is, what's that guy's? Oh, Bruno Skate. Shout out to Bruno. Whenever I want to get some good matches, and I'm not saying only these two. I'm just saying that because, I mean, I probably PvP with them in particular most often. Now, there's other guys that you guys may have noticed me in the sparring sessions video. But I don't really PvP with them a lot, right? So that's why I'm not making mention of them specifically, right? So I'm not trying to imply that they are tryhards and only the two that I mention are not, right? Because I know a lot of you trolls like to look for every single thing that you can make comments about. So I'm not saying that. I'm just saying since I PvP with them the most, right? That's one good thing about them, that I know I can practice and learn to get proficient with my tactics, without trying to deal with someone who's basically trying to end the fight, you know, with like a 2 or 3 move combo or a full try-hard build. Alright, so shout out to Bruno Skate. Actually, Rikio, he's another one. He's another one. Whenever I want to get some good matches and I want to practice on my tactics, Rikio, he's definitely another one. Alright, so shout out to those three, in addition to everyone else I'm able to get some good matches in with. Alright, so this is definitely difficult for me because, especially when you're dealing with someone with a lot of poise, because I think he has probably at least 53, but I think he has somewhere around 56, right? Because he's got the black iron headpiece, black iron leggings, Elite Knight chest plate, and I'm not really sure what kind of gauntlets he has. So, I mean, whenever you're kind of fighting someone with a lot of poise and you yourself has little poise, I mean, it's very difficult, especially when you're not using one of those weapons that tends to stun lock, right? Because if you guys notice, I have a halberd and a longsword. So, basically, he could just poise through a lot of my hits. And actually, there's nothing really wrong with that. What I'm saying is, it really requires for me to pick and choose when I attack and when, you know, I evade, you know, or when I should block or when not. Because, you know, if I'm too close to him, he could just poise through any of my attacks, right? Because you guys notice, like I said before, I just have a halberd and a longsword. So he could just basically brush through what I'm doing and BS me, or, I mean, just hit me with a strong attack, right? Whatever suits his needs at the time that he employs it. Alright, so we got rid of the ridiculous invader who just couldn't wait his turn. Alright, so we're back at it. Alright, and this is basically my 14 poise build. And, you know, the reason why I go at 14 and nothing higher is basically because I hate getting stun locked by rapiers, right? And I think the poise break for rapiers and daggers is somewhere around 13. So this build has 14. And actually, I think he was able to get out of that because he must be wearing, either the timing was wrong, right? Or he has one of those Arm of Thorn pieces. And I think he has an Arm of Thorn piece, if I'm not mistaken. Alright, so I got lucky right there. Alright. So now he's pulling out the hand axe, and actually I'm going to be in trouble right there because, like I said before, the hand axe, I mean, I think it requires the highest poise break to be able to sustain a hit with that hand axe, so I really have to time my attacks. And if you notice, that's why I'm being as evasive as I am. Now, you know, a lot of these guys would suggest, well, why don't you just use the Darkwood Grain Ring? The Darkwood Grain Ring is cool with having as little poise as I do. But at the end of the day, I don't want to rely on the crutch of the invincibility frames. Now, granted, that's a personal choice, right? But I'm just saying, I just don't want to rely on all the invincibility frames that you get with the Darkwood Grain Ring. Because in other words, if I'm able to flip out of every single attack, I'm not really learning how to time my dodging. Right, so I think the fast roll, at least for me, does a better job in, you know, kind of helping me to dodge at the right times. Alright, so GG right there. Alright, so he's kind of hitting me with the combinations. So I really have to keep my guard up. And like I said before, like we kind of touched on in part 1 of this 2-part series, this is one of those situations where you're just kind of looking at it and you're like, you know what? I cannot go exclusively with no shield. Because in some of these situations, he's basically going for combinations. Either combinations or just spamming attacks. Like I said, it has a negative connotation, but there's nothing wrong with spamming attacks. But what I'm saying is, it's probably good not to go exclusively one thing. Well, at least with regard to going, you know, either no shield or dual wielding. Now, you can kind of go exclusively with a shield and be good. I mean, because, case in point, I've went with shield only for the longest. I mean, it's only up to recently, you know, maybe the last month or so. As a matter of fact, I would say month at most that I started to experiment without a shield. So, I mean, I do know the longer I go with primarily only going right-hand weapon and off-hand weapon, I do know I'll get better at the dodging. But at the end of the day, I think I need to have a plan B. Right? Definitely need to have a plan B, because whenever these guys start either running two-hand R1ing with a greatsword, and actually that was a good parry right there. And good thing he kind of underestimated himself. Because that probably, well, it wouldn't have been a death of me, because actually I still had a lot of vitality, but it really would have brought the game to a closer margin. Alright, so I really need to be careful, not only because I have low poise, but I mean, that large club is rather powerful. And I don't know if this is a strength build or is he just rocking a 2740. If you guys notice those toggles, couldn't get out of that second one because I really didn't anticipate him swinging a second time, so I couldn't really prepare. But if you guys notice, I've definitely been working on my first hit toggles, and you have to when you're rocking low poise. Right, but you know, sometimes when you see a lot of these guys playing, case in point like Spades, Mark Mallows, Elite, and a lot of these other guys, you know, when you notice them, you watch their vids or you watch their live streams and you notice how good they are at the toggling, it just really motivates you to want to get proficient yourself. And that's another reason why basically I started to experiment with the lower poise, because I said, you know what, these guys are awesome at toggling. Actually, there's some other guy that I'm just kind of new to. I think his name is like Pain, P-E-I-N. He has a video with himself fighting against Spades, and that guy's pretty good at toggling too. So, you know, after watching Spades, Elite, Mark Mallows, the Pain dude, and and Bushy, Mr. Bushido Wright. You guys want to watch some good toggles? Check out those guys' channels, because they are awesome at first hit toggling. And like I said before, to be honest, they are the main reason why I decided to go at a lower poise break. Now, like I said before, I won't be staying at the lower poise when I'm forest hunting. Right? Because, I mean, you just have to be prepared for anything when you're forest hunting. But whenever I'm going to be doing setup matches, these formal matchups, I mean, from now on, I'm just going to be going under the 53 poise break, because I really want to get proficient at these tactics. Alright, so he's rocking the Balder Side Sword, and actually, that was an awesome parry right there. And that was definitely not a run-up. At least I don't think so. That was a good estimation, along with a good R2. So GG right there. Alright, so we're back at it. This time he's got a claymore, so I have to be careful. Man, some of those hits are so fast, you just really don't have time to react. And see, that's why I said, I mean, you might not be a hot shot in the very beginning at toggling on the first hit, but you get hit enough, eventually you will learn to kind of time your toggles. And another thing you guys have to keep in mind is that, you know, in some cases you have to judge between if you want to toggle or if you just want to go ahead and roll out of it. Because I think there's a video out there that demonstrates that, at least with the greatsword, that you can roll out of the second hit. So you might get hit and stunned with the first hit, but you can kind of roll out of the second hit. So, you know, it's just kind of one of those situations where you need to decide between whether it's more strategic for you to toggle and perhaps, you know, punish with a BS or attempt to parry, or if it's just better for you to go ahead and roll out of the hit. And I think with me being so new to, you know, experimenting with lower poise, I'm just kind of in the phase where see, you guys notice right there, it backfired because I thought he was going to do a consecutive swing, but he paused. Because if you guys notice, I toggled out of that hit and then I immediately parried. And actually, I should have just went around and BS right there and it backfired because he just ended up BSing me. Ugh. Alright, so we got a GG right there with good old Zolo-san. Alright, so let's just kind of talk about the channel. Now, I'm pretty sure you guys know that I've been doing this probably about a year. I started at the end of March of 2012, and I've basically been going strong ever since. But you know, with Dark Souls 2, you know, in the works and soon to be released, my goal is basically to stop at 200 videos. Alright, got a good toggle right there. That's my goal, right? So, you know, I have tons of commentaries. As a matter of fact, the vast majority of my material is full of commentaries. Now, granted, I have a few montages out there, but my focus is basically on commentaries. And I'm really appreciative for a lot of the guys who've been able to glean some good things out of those commentaries. But, you know, I mean, my time is basically up. You know, and I mean, speaking of time being up, I mean, case in point, just the other day I went on my channel and I tallied the total time of all my playlists. And for a lot of you guys that are familiar with me, I mean, my channel is all about commentaries. I added up all of the times of all of my Dark Souls and Demon Souls material. And I've made just over 77 hours worth of contributions to Dark Souls. 77 hours. I mean, because think about it, most of my videos are at least 20 to 25 minutes worth of commentary, right? So that lets you know how many hours of commentary I've invested into this game, and that's over the past year. Right, so I mean, seeing that Dark Souls 2 is coming up, I mean, like I said before, my time is really up. So, as far as the channel is concerned, my goal is to come up with a total of 200 videos, and at 200, I'm going to stop. I mean, because think about it, 200 videos dedicated to one game with at least 77 hours worth of commentary. I mean, I think I've basically talked about everything that I can basically talk about. So, I mean, after my 200th video, I'm going to be done until Dark Souls 2. Now, the thing about Dark Souls 2, you know, I'm really having a hard time trying to decide if I'm going to do a full playthrough or whatnot of the game. And here's why. You know, I checked out a video of Epic's not too long ago, and he was basically talking about the excitement that you get when you play a game, as opposed to basically just quick referencing everything on YouTube. And you know, when I thought about it, I mean, that was kind of like a good point. Now, granted, you may go to YouTube or, some of these forums or communities to get answers for things. But at the end of the day, you really get the full effect of a game when you figure out things on your own. Right? So, I don't know. I think when Dark Souls 2 come out, I think, I'm definitely going to stick on the PvP. But with regard to the game walkthroughs, I'm thinking I'm not going to do an actual walkthrough until a little later after the game has been released, right? And like I said before, the main purpose for that is I really want people to enjoy their first experience with Dark Souls 2. And I want my contributions to PvP to come a little later, and after people have learned the basic mechanics of the game. Now I know a lot of people are going to jump on the uploading bandwagon, all that other stuff, and I'm really having a hard time trying to figure out how I'm going to tackle it, because although I will be excited about it, right, and I want to go ahead and do commentaries of the walkthroughs and have you guys go ahead and share my experience, at the end of the day, I want you guys to really appreciate the freshness of having a new game, and not just basically going through these guides real quick and basically cheating yourself out of the full experience. Now, this is not to say that you won't have a full experience if you do, reference every single thing on YouTube. But what I am saying is you really come to appreciate a lot of these things when you learn them for yourself. Case in point, I'll get some guys who they'll ask me the question, what's your favorite weapon? Should I use this weapon? Should I use this armor? And I'm thinking to myself, like, listen, guys. I mean, the only reason why I have the views and opinions that I have is because I got out there and I figured it out for myself. Not because I went to some YouTube video and had somebody tell me what the best weapon is or what the best armor is, and then I use it based upon that opinion and not based upon my own self-discovery. Right? So that's kind of one of the things that I want to avoid. Now, like I said before, when the game is released, I'm not saying that I won't do any. But I'm probably going to, just showcase some PvP first. And after the game has been out, probably for a few weeks, then I'll come up with the full game walkthroughs. So like I said, guys, for a lot of you guys that have been with me from the beginning, I really appreciate the loyalty and commitment to the channel. Alright, but at 200 videos, I am going to just basically stop uploading until Dark Souls 2 is released. Right, because I want to go ahead and have a clean slate, fresh mind, and prepare myself for all the things that From is going to bring to us. So this is pretty much it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the two-part series. So until next time, Martyrs Brigade is out. And GG Dark Souls for that laggy R2.